Who wants a normal family car when you can have an affordable SUV for not much more? And if you want something that combines style with value, you should look east.
But which should you choose between the Mazda CX-5, the recently revised Hyundai Tucson, or the also recently revised Kia Sportage? We have a Southeast Asian shootout, so we shouldn't have any problems with reliability today.
To help you decide which is the best car for you, I'm going to compare their designs.
What a load of lies!
See how practical they are?
I can fold down the rear seats by using these levers. Ta-da!
Critique their cabins.
It's Sportage by name and Sportage by nature.
And find out what they're like to drive.
The steering is just a little bit on the odd side.
But first, let's talk cold, hard cash.
The Kia Sportage starts from just over £20,000, the Hyundai Tucson from just over £22,000 and the Mazda CX-5 from just over £25,000. However, what really matters is the price you pay at a dealer, so click on the pop-out banner just up there on the link below the video to check out the carwow configurator. Then you can build your ideal car and see what offers you can get back on it.
Generally, even after carwow discounts, the Mazda works out a little bit more expensive. But then, out of the three, it looks the most A-list.
In terms of the design, this CX-5 is a little bit like the actor Hugh Jackman. Now, it's not because it's got huge metal claws and can regenerate if you crash it. It's because it's inoffensive, yet it's still got plenty of presence. I also like the fact that regardless of which model you go for, they all look pretty much the same. You don't get shortchanged on bits of trim. The only thing that's different is the size of the alloy wheels.
However, this is not the case with the Koreans.
I think Hyundai have really nailed the exterior design of the Tucson. It's a really good looking car, though you will want one of the high spec versions such as this for it to look as good as it can.
It's a similar story with the Kia too, plus it has some other issues.
Now, I'm not sure whether this Kia Sportage is a small SUV or just a fat hatchback. It's definitely got an interesting look that you'll either love or hate. Now, lesser versions don't have half of the shiny bits of kit that this one has on it, because this is the range-topping version. It even has a rear diffuser and twin exhaust pipes on this diesel that, well, this one there is fake. That one there is fake as well. In fact, the exhaust tip is just underneath there. What a load of lies!
Thankfully, the Kia isn't quite so deceitful on the inside.
It's Sportage by name and Sportage by nature. I do like the flat dash, it's pretty cool, it does make it feel sporty. The materials on the top of the dash are good, like the stitch effect there, and on the door tops they're all right, and Kia's improved its steering wheels. However, it doesn't take long to find some cheap plastics. Look, soft, hard and brittle, and really scratchy. That's not so good. Still, the car does feel solid, everything's nicely laid out. I like the fact that you get analog dials and then a useful digital readout in between them, and the infotainment system. I like the way it's fitted flush into the dash, it does look good.
That said, personally, I prefer the CX-5's cabin.
This Mazda is a pretty nice car to sit in. So the design is interesting, you've got shiny bits of trim about the place, lots of soft touch materials on the dash, there's even leatherette effect here and it's stitched, and on the doors. The steering wheel is sporty and feels expensive as well. Everything's nicely laid out, so it's dead easy to use, generally pretty sturdy. There is just a cheap bit of plastic down here, but that is my only complaint.
Unfortunately, after the classy Mazda and sporty Kia, the Hyundai is just a little bit humdrum.
After the exterior, the interior of this car is just a little bit of a disappointment. It's not awful, it's just a bit meh. Yeah, there's some swoopy effect on the dash, some leatherette, soft touch materials up there, but it soon gets hard and scratchy. And look at this, also a little bit wobbly. You do get a digital screen just in between the dials though, so you can look at different stuff if you want to. Take your mind off the rest of the bland cabin.
The Tucson's infotainment system is equally as exciting to look at as the rest of the cabin. However, it's actually very good and easy to use. The Kia has the exact same system, and both get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. So too does the Mazda, but its infotainment system just isn't as good as the Koreans. I can't fault its back seats though.
It's super roomy here in the back. I mean, look, even really, really tall people will be fine. You can stretch out as well. And there's the ability to recline the chairs ever so slightly, although actually not by much, by about a centimetre. But I do like this, look. You can fold down the middle seat as well, so you can carry really long items. And 2 people in the back if you want.
Neither the Tucson nor the Sportage have this feature. but they are still fairly decent for rear passengers. In fact, while these cars may look different, they are pretty much identical underneath the skin because Hyundai owns Kias and uses many of the same mechanical parts across both brands. As a result, these two cars pretty much have the exact same interior space. So my verdicts on their back seats are just as similar.
It's generally all right here in the back, but headroom, I can just about get one finger between my head and the roof. Part of the reason for that is this glass roof does eat into the head space. However, look, I can recline the seats quite a way, so it's not such an issue. You just have to travel like that. It's fairly roomy here in the back. Loads of knee room, foot room. Headroom, yeah, just about enough. 2 fingers worth though. The roof does eat into headspace a bit. Of course, I can recline the seats quite a way. Look at that. Lovely.
If you need to carry 3 people in the back at once, the CX-5 is ever so slightly better than the other two, though it's still going to be a little bit cramped for adults. It's the same story with fitting a child seat. The Mazda is just a little more roomy, but not by enough to matter too much. And that brings me on to the functionality of the CX-5's boot.
There are 2 features which aren't so great about the boot. One is a mild load lip, so it does make it a bit hard to slide items in because you have to just lift them over that. And then there's this, the parcel shelf. There's nowhere to really store it in the car. It won't fit underneath this false floor because you've got this kind of weird storage area there like that. But all is forgiven because of this. Look, I can fold down the rear seats from here just by using these levers. Ta-da! Ah, just notice one thing. Look, it's really tall. It's quite easy to bang your head on this. Doesn't really go up much further.
Funnily, what's good and bad about the Mazda is the other way round with the Koreans, and yet again the story with the Tucson and the Sportage is exactly the same.
There are a couple of things I like about the Kia Sportage's boot. The first is that you've got this scuff plate and no load lip, so you can just slide things easily in and out. Also, look at this, the load cover, you can store it underneath the false floor. One thing to be aware of though is that if you have the 2-litre diesel, it has a mild hybrid system in it. So underneath there is some battery stuff. Otherwise you'd have a space saver spare wheel. One thing I don't like so much is this, look, if I want to lower the back seats, I've got to walk round to the back seats themselves. Can't do it from the boot. There. I'm not going to be bothered to do the other side, sorry. You get the idea. I like the fact that it's dead easy to just store the parcel shelf underneath the false floor. You'll see there's room for a spare wheel as well. Just cover that over. There's no load lip, but yeah, I've got to walk around to put the seats down. Oh well. There we go. That took up far too much of my time. Yeah, at least 5 seconds.
Interestingly, the load capacities of the Kia and Hyundai are slightly different, with the Kia having a touch less boot space due to its more sloping rear end. Also, you can get the Sportage and the Tucson as mild hybrids, and in this instance, they both have a bit less boot space than the normal versions. And this is why I could get noticeably less in this particular Sportage than the Tucson, because the Sportage was the mild hybrid and the Tucson was a normal petrol. However, if you have the non-hybrid versions of both these Korean cars, the load space goes like this. Hyundai with the most, Mazda with the next most, and then Kia with the least amount of space. But once again, there isn't much in it. But is that the case with how they drive? Time to find out.
This Hyundai Tucson is all pretty easy to drive. It's nice and manoeuvrable in town, you get a good view out of it, the controls aren't too heavy, they're not too light either. The suspension is a bit firm, so when you hit a bump you do feel it, so it's not as comfy as some other SUVs, but it's all right. The trade-off is that it actually handles quite well, though you'd never call it fun because the steering is just a little bit on the odd side. The engines are generally pretty reasonable, and the 1.6 litre turbo petrol in this car is good enough. So it's decent then, but not particularly remarkable to drive. Seeing as this Kia Sportage shares most of its components with the Hyundai Tucson, including the engines, it feels almost identical to drive. Maybe the suspension's a little bit firmer, or maybe that's just a placebo because it's got the name Sportage. This one though has a different engine. It has a 2-litre mild hybrid diesel. It's got a bit more pulling power than the turbo petrol, a bit more instant pickup. It comes with the automatic gearbox, which is very smooth and slick auto. The only thing is though, the way it recoups energy when you're braking means the brakes initially feel a bit too grabby and a bit odd, and I'm not so keen on that. Also, economy isn't as good as I'd hoped, 35 miles per gallon, which is 1 mile per gallon less than I got in the Hyundai. Oh dear, that's a petrol. This Mazda CX-5 does feel like a slightly nicer car to drive than the two Koreans. The suspension is a little bit softer, yet handles better. The steering is sharper as well, it feels more natural. The car really does go exactly where you want it to go. It's really pointy for an SUV such as this. I like this diesel engine, this 2.2, it's really punchy, decent economy as well, relatively smooth. However, the petrols that you get with the Koreans are better. This is just a 2-litre petrol that you get with this car, and it's a little bit wheezy unless you rev it. So you have to put your foot down to make decent progress. Gear shift, very sporty, maybe a bit notchy. So you might like it, you might not. I like it because I like sporty cars. And generally it's very easy to drive and manoeuvre around town, apart from the fact the turning circle isn't quite as good as the Kia or Hyundai. So you can end up making a bit of a fool of yourself if you need to do a U-turn.
So then, what's my final verdict?
Both the Hyundai and the Kia are decent family SUVs, but they're effectively the same car. So which one to choose? Whichever one you like the look of most, and I prefer the interior of the Sportage, so I'd have that. But actually I'd have the Mazda CX-5 overall, because while the Kia and the Hyundai may have better infotainment systems, in every other way, I think this is a superior vehicle. And that's why it wins this test. Do you agree with my verdict? Let me know in the comments section. Also, please subscribe to this channel for more videos. And if you click on the deals box to the right, you can see how much you can save on a new car at CarWow. Or click on the video windows below to watch another of my videos.